Okay, so it's time for tomatoes. I have a bunch of seeds for tomatoes. I think tomatoes might be probably the kind of seed that for some reason you end up having lots of varieties of. I mean, I don't accidentally end up with 50 different kinds of cabbage, but if I'm not careful, I will end up with 50 different tomato varieties. I don't know why, because a lot of times the difference between them isn't that big. I'm also gonna preface this with something that I think might be a bit like swearing in church. I don't like tomatoes, so that's a good start. I don't like fresh tomatoes. I like cooked tomatoes in sauce and even thinly sliced in a grilled sandwich. I don't like fresh tomatoes. There's something about the consistency. My husband does, so some of the varieties I grow for him, and not because I like them. The kind I grow the most is paste tomatoes. Obviously, because then you can make sauce and crushed tomatoes and all of those things. Because paste tomatoes have very little of the watery center and a lot more of the flesh. So they have thick walls and very few seeds. I have 3 varieties here. Roma, that I don't really like because I feel like it gets blossom and rot a lot. But they sell them with lots of seeds in them, so I still have a bunch from when I first used those. Amish paste, which I got before Brexit, so I could actually get seeds here without a lot of issues. I really like Amish paste. I feel like it's high producing paste tomato. But actually I have one that I didn't think would be such a big deal, but I have Pyramid, which I think I also got in that same order. It's a paste tomato that's really long, and I think it actually produces more than Amish paste. So we're gonna put Roma to the side, and we're going to do Amish paste and Pyramid this year. And then we have the tomatoes that are bush varieties. So I have, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this one, or maybe I am, Rotkäppchen, maybe. So it's a bush tomato. Then we have Tiny Tim, and Tiny Tim, I think it's one of those slightly unstable varieties, because I don't think I've ever gotten a Tiny Tim that looks the same as the next Tiny Tim. So don't trust those. I also have one called Ace 55. I think it's more of a standard tomato, only bush sized. And then I have one called Tumbler, which is a really small one. You can put in a small pot on a table. I have already sown Vilma, which is the same type of plant. So I'm just gonna not sow this one this year. I think we sow some of the Ace 55. Then we have our beefsteak varieties. And I have Marmande, Oxheart, and Cordy-Boo, or Cordy-Boo. I don't speak French, don't ask me to pronounce it correctly. All of these are really large tomatoes, around 250 grams per tomato. And while that's really nice, you know, harvesting a big tomato, of the Marmande I once harvested a 500 gram tomato, half a kilo. But that also means that if one tomato gets damaged, so much of your harvest is damaged, since you don't get as many tomatoes on one of those. So it's a bit more of it's fun, but it's a bit more of a gamble. We will do Marmande this year. What's good about tomatoes is that the seeds pretty much last forever. So it's not okay if we have a lot left over. Some of these seeds are many, many years old and they still grow fine. They might have a bit less of a percentage of seeds grown, but not much. As opposed to some other vegetables that are bad even within a season, like parsnip is one of those that doesn't last. We then have some tall plants that are a bit special. We have Gardener's Delight, which is a large cherry tomato. And we have Principe Borghese, which is plum-sized. And it's also one of those that is supposed to hold up really well stored indoors during the winters. You can eat them fresh. Since I don't eat them fresh, I can't really say anything about the flavor, but I know a lot of people have said that they don't taste great when you store them like that. So we're actually skipping Principe Borghese this year and just doing a couple of Gardener's Delight. Then we have our average sized tomatoes, somewhere around 70 to 100 grams, more like the standard grocery store tomato. And I have Moneymaker, I have Martina, and I have Isla Craig. And honestly, I don't think there's a lot of difference between them. So this year we are doing Moneymaker, I think. Then we have one outlier, and this one I'm purely planting because my kids think it's fun. So this is the hundreds and thousands. This is one of those that is supposed to hang. So you should either have a really tall pot so they can hang over the edge, or a hanging planter of some kind. These get a lot of tiny tomatoes. So somewhere between maybe like an American blueberry in size, or a really large blackcurrant, somewhere around there. They're fun, but very time consuming to harvest. So we're doing this for the kids and because my husband thinks they are nice to snack on. Apart from these, I have, as I said, I've already sown Vilma, which is a compact little cherry tomato. And I've also sown Ida Gold. And Ida Gold is not supposed to be very tall, but has these kind of large yellow cherry-sized tomatoes, slightly larger than cherry-sized. I've already sown those because I have a friend whose daughters share a name with those tomatoes, so I sow those on their birthdays. So they are already on their way, and the rest are going into these pots. With tomatoes, I usually just sow them kind of close together in a small pot, because then I can have them concentrated under a grow light. Tomatoes grow fast, so usually I can replant them quite quickly. So this is not really an issue. I don't need to put one seed in each cell. I mean, tomatoes are basically a weed, in my opinion. And if you ask anyone working at like a sewage plant, they will say the same thing. So, and I also use a shock marker directly on my pots because that's easier. All right, so with the two varieties I've already sown, we have 9 different tomatoes this year. What you can see here on my wall is post-its of everything I need to sow or have sown. And for most of them, it's one variety, except for tomatoes. So when I've sown something and it's on its way, they are here. So for instance, I've sown and seen that they have popped up for broccoli. So I will be moving those here. We just did tomatoes. So tomatoes are moving over here. We are doing peas, and I'm going to go outside and sow some carrots now that I have some beds free for that, or finished. Then I also have my year-round plants here. And in just next to the window, I don't even know if it's visible on camera here, is a list of plants I'm going to buy at the fair we're going to in Stockholm at the end of the month. Oh, I will also say that you might have noticed that I sow my tomato seeds a bit like a crazy person as well. I just throw some out onto the soil. As I said, because they grow fast, they are quick to germinate, and I think so you can just quickly replant them into their own separate pots. I do that partly because I think they sprout better because there's more even water retention in the pots. If you have those small cells like these, which are dirty from the lost plants, they dry up or get too wet. So I feel like this kind of makes it easier for plants to grow. And then I don't have to have empty cells either, because everything might not germinate here. But in one of these, if I have 10 seeds and 8 germinate, it's still the same space it occupies. And you might also notice that I didn't count how many seeds. And that's because I don't care. If I get too many, they are great gifts. I have friends. I have actually down here a list of plants people are picking up for me. I don't think it's that much extra work for me to sow a couple of extra seeds or accidentally have too much so I can give some to my friends. I have friends who have small kids as well and don't feel like they have the time. And I think it's nice if they can have some fresh vegetables even if they don't have the time this time of year to start the seeds. That's why. Don't care if I get too many tomato plants. Someone will want them. And now these need some water. I should also show you this little buddy, which I don't have the cover on right now. We'll see with the sound if I actually need to have it on inside as well, but it looks like I'm carrying around a small animal with it on. I get that I need it outdoors. We'll see if I need it indoors as well. I got this from my husband for my birthday, so hopefully I will be able to produce some better quality sound on these videos. Thank you for joining me. Have a nice day.